guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with the second half of my April wrap-up. I did my first half in the first half of the month, obviously. It is the first, 2.5 weeks of the month, and I had read 17 books last wrap-up, I think. This time I only read 13, which still is a lot, but not as much for me. I was kind of in a rut reading a couple books, and it was taking me forever to read them. I wouldn't say it was a slump, but it took me over a week to physically read one book because it was my first time rereading and annotating it, and then the other book I DNF'd. So I finally stopped reading that and read an entire book in a day. So it just depends on what I was in the mood for, and I was reading books I wasn't super in the mood for and was dying to read other books. But I still read 13. I've got a lot to get through, so I will go ahead and chat about everything I've read this month. So the end of my previous wrap-up was in the middle of my monster romance reading vlog. I will link that down below. It was a lot of fun to try out monster romances. I actually had my live show with Ravished by Romance last night where we chatted about one of the monster romances we read, and we realized so many monster romances have very cinnamon roll, just sweet heroes, even though they're literal monsters, and I was just interested to see that most authors were choosing that I've been picking up to write very sweet monsters. Maybe it's because physically they're supposed to be scary, and so they really are gentle and nice. Let me know if you have any where they're not cinnamon roll heroes, because I would like to explore different ones. But the first one I have to share with you that I finished was Treasure of the Abyss by Tiffany Roberts. I forgot I read a Tiffany Roberts. I'm interested in reading their other ones. I believe this is a husband-wife duo, and I want to read Ensnared because I love those covers, but I would listen to this one on audio, and the beginning was really slow. It's a Kraken romance, and so our heroine is in a relationship with a guy that she's not really into, and she knows he wants to marry her. They go on a boat trip together and end up getting into an accident, and she washes up on shore somewhere, and the Kraken had saved her, and he wants to keep her, and she has no idea what Krakens are. Krakens absolutely hate humans, so it's kind of forbidden for the hero's part because he's falling in love with this human and his people hate humans. They have this research center that was owned by humans that they use now, and so he wants to keep her for himself, and she decides to stay and needs a way to explore the ocean, so they use stuff from the research center for that, and they fall in love, and there's a lot that happens in the second half that had me really intrigued. But the first half of this book was really slow, and I was like, is this gonna be another boring one? Because I had read a boring one previously, and he was just he kidnapped her, but he was still very sweet to her and just wanted the best for her, and he's a Kraken, so he's got some tentacles going on. But I gave this one 4 stars because, like I said, the beginning was a little slow, but I really enjoyed it once we got other Kraken involved, and they were discussing why they hate humans and their history, and her trying to confront her family and how she's in love with a Kraken. And so I think it got really entertaining for the second half of the book. It just had a very slow start, but I am excited to try out more from this author. The last one I read for that video, and the one I read for our book club, is The Dragon's Bite by Katie Robert, and this one I also found it interesting how human-like the monsters are. So our monster's a dragon, but they had mated with humans for so long that the dragons are very much like humans. They just have a couple different features, obviously, but he has a torso and more male characteristics than what I would have imagined a dragon romance to be, and they discuss that. And I feel also in I Married a Lizard Man, he has pretty physical features that are human. It's just he would have scales and a tail, and so it kind of is dipping your toes into a monster romance. And so this one I really enjoyed. People in the live show were all over the place. I know my co-host gave it 3 stars. I gave it 4.5, and I know some people who did enjoy it too. I just really like the romance because the romance in this one was the best out of the 3 I had read for that reading vlog. Our heroine is in an abusive relationship, so she makes a deal with a demon to get out of that relationship, and then she will herself be auctioned off for 7 years to be with whoever buys her. The demon kills her husband, and she doesn't feel bad about that. She is auctioned off to our hero, who is a dragon, because he needs to mate with someone to carry on something. I don't know. In the live show, they made a good point that the fantasy aspect of this isn't really fleshed out, but I don't consider this a fantasy book. I consider it a romance with a monster in a fantasy kind of world, so I wasn't too mad about the fact that the world was not fleshed out whatsoever. It's really short. It's not a novella length though, so it did feel it was kind of missing a little bit of depth there, but I was here for the romance, and I loved the romance. So our hero was very sweet again, very kind and consenting, asking her what she wanted, if it was okay. She doesn't want to have a baby with him because she knows she's only going to be with him for 7 years. But of course they start falling for each other, and then they're we're only going to be with each other for 7 years. And I thought it was really sweet. There's primal play in here as well, which kind of helped her just deal with her trauma, and I really like that she was taking control of her relationship and her life with our hero, and so I just ended up enjoying it and how the ending turned. I really like that. I'm excited for book 2, which comes out later this year with a Kraken, so pleasantly surprised. I'm obsessed with these covers, and I thought this was a great monster romance. Then I listened to the audiobook of A Rogue to Remember by Emily Sullivan. This has been on my TBR for a while. I finally listened to the audio because I do have book 2, and I think book 3 comes out soon, but this one's a spy romance. So our hero's a spy and works for our heroine's uncle. Our heroine's uncle, I believe, is dying, and so our hero is tasked to find our heroine, and she's actually trying to ruin her reputation so she doesn't have to marry someone, and he tracks her down in Italy and is trying to take her back, and she's like, if you want to take me back, fine, but you have to let me like finish my tour of Italy with me and then we'll go back. So they go around Italy together. So it's very much a traveling romance. They have to spend a lot of nights together with only one bed trope because he is the one escorting her around, and I believe they do have an escort that was pretty grumpy, but like a chaperone. And our heroine and our hero actually have a past. They were really close in the past and then something tore them apart, and I enjoyed this one. It was a solid read. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't love it as much as I thought it would because everybody has been raving about this book, but I do really enjoy a romance where they fell in love when they were younger and then something tore them apart and now they have to reconcile and address what had happened to them. So that's what happened in here. I like the traveling aspect. I like how he was a spy and things that she was implicated in with her uncle without knowing, and I thought it was a lot of fun, but I can't give it a 5-star because it was missing a little something for me, but solid read. I'm excited to continue more with this author and read the next book in the series. Also, for our historical romance readathon happening in May, it's a couple weeks away. You can definitely read this for the spy category because we do have a spy square on our bingo board. Then I read The Taming of Jessie Rose by Beverly Jenkins. I interviewed Beverly Jenkins on my channel in April, and it was the most amazing experience I've ever had on my channel as a reader. Talking to Beverly Jenkins, she is such an iconic author. So humble, so sweet. She had the best stories. Check out that live show if you haven't yet, but I love her books. I've read probably over 20 of her books now. This is one I hadn't read yet, and so I listened to the audiobook, and it wasn't my absolute favorite, but I love how interconnected her books are because this one I believe is connected with Nighthawk, I think. So the hero in this one is a train robber, and he will steal for a living, and so he has a friend though who asks him to help out Jessie. Jessie lives on a ranch. She is raising her nephew. She is infertile, so she does deal with that in here. I think she had an illness that made her infertile, and she is just taking care of herself and protecting herself, but someone in town is trying to buy up land and he wants her land, and so he literally meets Jessie when she's like on her roof with a gun, and they end up falling in love. And with Beverly Jenkins books, they're very low angst. They always get together by halfway through the book, and so for that, me personally, I really love how sweet the romances are, but I do end up getting a little bored in the middle of the book, so I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not quite a 4-star read because the romance really was like established by halfway through the book, and then the second half of the book was trying to put off this man who is trying to take her land, and there's always a moment of suspense in her books as well, which I really like, but the romance was not my absolute favorite in this one, and I wanted a little bit more from the side characters, so I gave it 3.5 stars, but I definitely love Beverly Jenkins still. This just was not one of my favorites from her. Then my library finally got the audiobook of Club 22 by Tate James. They have slowly been getting each one in the series, so I always check back. This one finally came in as book 3 in the Hades series. They don't have the 4th audio yet, so I have to keep on checking, but this one's a reverse harem where Hades is like a boss of like a kind of like crime group, not the mafia, but she runs her own empire, and her romance is with a guy who works at her club that's pretty young, that she shouldn't be dating. We have her best friend and then someone that she has had a lot of tension with. So there's 3 guys, and the romance has been developing a lot, and this one I feel like really developed the romance with the other 2 guys and not Lucas, who is the younger one. Lucas is my favorite though, so I wanted to see a little bit more of him in this one, but these are so entertaining, and we have a lot of mystery and suspense going on because of the villain in here that really came in book 2, and it's just building and building in this book. A lot more danger, trying to save people, trying to save her sister, trying to save women that are put into danger because of this villain who's trying to trap her with the police, and things definitely escalate at the end. Another cliffhanger. Every book has ended on a cliffhanger. I kind kind of saw it coming, but I was still pretty surprised. I didn't want it to actually happen what I saw coming, but I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. These are so entertaining, and I love the reverse harem aspect and how she has such unique relationships with each of the guys in the book and how those all take their own time to develop. And so I'm obsessed with this series, and I'm really excited for the last book, and I need my library to get the audiobook soon because I love the audiobooks and I just love the series. Then I read A Gentle Feuding by Joanna Lindsey for the Historical Hellions book club. This one is a Scottish romance, and it had pretty polarizing views as well during our live show. I gave it 4 stars, though I can see why people didn't love it because our heroine is the favorite of everybody. She's like so pretty. She's a redhead. She's got a fiery attitude, which is like so cliche for older historical romances, but her family and the hero's family are feuding clans, and the hero is the laird of his clan, and he accidentally gets kidnapped by the other clan, and it comes to light that he's the laird. He actually talks to her brother, which is super adorable. Her brother's really young, talks to him, and they want him to marry one of their daughters, except for our heroine. And our hero had actually seen our heroine bathing in a pond and is like entranced and obsessed with her, but he doesn't know who she is, so that's why he was like looking for her when he got caught. And so he's like, oh well, he's so angry, he threatens to ravage and brutally hurt the heroine, whoever he marries, without knowing who she is. And he's not serious, he's just trying to intimidate them, but he never can say, he's like cut off before he can say like, I'm not being serious. And so the heroine has this idea of him, that he is this like savage brute that's going to completely like tear her apart if they're married. So she's horrified of him. Well, flash forward a little bit, and he is released, and because she helps release him because she doesn't want to marry him, and she ends up being kidnapped by his brother. His brother sees her when he's out walking because she is sent off somewhere else, and his brother sees her and is like, you're so gorgeous, I'm gonna take you for myself. And she's like, what is happening? So she gets taken back. She's hiding at this castle for like a week with the brother. The laird of the clan realizes who he's kidnapped and is like, oh my gosh. But the heroine now is like, no, I don't want to touch you. You're the one who's like horrifying. And so the story goes from there. And then they're supposed to have a marriage of convenience. There's a lot that goes into this, and it was just entertaining. Like, these old historicals are so entertaining to me. I had a lot of fun reading it. The heroine makes some not smart decisions where she ends up being kidnapped a few times because she won't listen to people and won't tell her what's going on, but I had a fun time. This was a fun romance. It was very consensual for an older Joanna Lindsey, because though she was kidnapped and he threatened to do bad things to her, he never did, and everything was consensual in here. So I had a fun time, 4 stars. I can see what was annoying in this book, but I enjoyed it. Then I was physically reading Inked in Lies, so I started the audio of Dead Man Walking and finished this very quickly, though it is a very long audiobook, a very long book. This is my reread for the Fallen Men read-along I did with my friend Tori from Novel Life. We were rereading these books, having our live shows. It was so much fun. This one is Priest's story. He is the killer for the MC, and Bia is Lulu's sister from book 2, and she is just this very innocent looking heroine who loves dark things. So she has her own true crime podcast. She is attracted to darkness, and Priest is darkness. And I think it was very interesting, the relationship with religion, because Bia is very much still a member of a church. Priest has a not great relationship with the church, and because of what he went through in his past, this is very dark. This is the darkest romance in the series. We have him murdering someone in front of Bia for her in the first like 100 pages, not even 50 pages. So lots of blood in here, a lot of darkness, a lot of interesting dynamics between them in their intimate life, but I still really enjoy this. I still give it 4 out of 5 stars. It's not my absolute favorite because this one is a lot more long-winded in the writing, where it's a giant book but not like a ton happens in the plot, and I liked the writing more in Inked in Lies in this one, because Gianna does kind of, her writing reflects the characters in her book, and so this one was just a very dark, serious kind of romance where it's the juxtaposition of light and dark. So I still really enjoyed it, but not my absolute favorite, so 4 out of 5 stars, but I do love listening to the audiobooks of this series. Then I picked up The Enforcer by Katrina Jackson. This one I didn't even know was out because I read the Something in Family by her, which is .5, which is a, was it The Family? I don't remember. I only own the second book, which is technically book 1. So the first novella in the series was about a woman going and having a fling with this mafia guy at a pizza shop. And so then book 2 is about a woman who gets cheated on at her wedding, so she breaks it off, goes on her honeymoon alone, falls for a hitman. And so in this one, it is the girl's sister from book 2 and cousin from book 1, and her cousin have to go to Italy to track down their sister from book 2 because she has not come back. She is still hanging out with this hitman, having a good time. And so their aunties is what she calls them. I forget the actual word for it, but the mothers and aunts of her family are all like, you need to do this. Like, we call a family meeting and you're gonna go find her. So they go to Italy together, the heroine and her cousin, who had an affair with someone in the mafia, and they track her sister down, and she is shacked up with this mafia guy, and they run into the guy that the cousin had a hookup with, and another one of their mafia people. So she falls for Alfonso, who's working in the mafia with them. There are dangerous guys after them, so they decide to split up in the couple. So Alfonso and our heroine have to hide together. So they go to Alfonso's town where he grew up, where his mother and brothers are, and it is so cute. It's mafia, but it's very, very light mafia. It is such a fun time. Our heroine is curvy, and she had just gotten out of a polyamorous relationship because she doesn't want kids, and the two men she was with decided they wanted kids, and she really has to reevaluate where that came from in their relationship, whose fault it was that it came to that point, and her not communicating enough. So she's heartbroken in this book, but slowly falling for Alfonso, and they're hiding, so they have to stay together a lot, and I really enjoy this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. Not too much happened plot-wise, like with the danger, which I would have liked more, but it is a very light mafia, so if you want light mafia, read the series. I'm super excited for the next book, which is the couple from the novella in the previous beginning of the book. I can't wait to go back to them and see what's up with them, and so I could not recommend the series enough. Definitely check it out. Then I finally finished my reread of Inked and Lies. This took me almost a week to physically read because I was tabbing it. I love the tabs I got. I got these from Logan from LCS Bookstagram on Instagram. She had shared these, and what she does is she gets the packs and then she rearranges the colors so that they're all monochrome. So I did that and it made a whole pack of purples. Darcy did end up eating some of them because I left it on my bedside table, and she loves plastic and cardboard, so she took about 2 or 3 of the colors off, but I still could salvage some. And then I did also highlight my reread. I'm trying to find, I know I did a lot more at the end. So like here, and I highlighted a lot of my favorite moments and tabbed them. I used the mild liner highlighter, which is my favorite. I can link those 2 down below. All I did was tab my favorite parts and my favorite quotes and then highlight my favorite quotes, and it was so much fun. But it takes me a lot longer because I was really taking my time to absorb everything about the story and everything I was loving about it, and so this is one of my favorite books of all time, and it is amazing, and it made me appreciate the book even more rereading it with how beautiful Gianna's writing is, with all the flower imagery. Lila is the flower child for Nova. It is the MC romance. It's the Fall Men series. This is book 5. We have Lila and Nova who met when they were really young. Lila was like 6 and Nova was a teenager, and Lila comes from a really bad family and Nova's family takes her in, and then now Lila is in her early 20s and she has always been in love with Nova, and it's their romance. So it's age gap MC, kind of foster brother, even though he was really older and never like lived with her that much, but his brothers are pretty much her brothers, and it was just amazing. I absolutely love this book so much. I had such a fun time tabbing it and highlighting, and I did an exclusive reading vlog of this book for my members. So if you are a member of my channel, you got to see me reread this book and talk about my tabbing and all my favorite lines and moments in this book, and it was so fun, and 5 stars. Like, one of my favorite books. I just ordered the Dark and Corky special edition box with this book in it with the gorgeous cover, and I'm so excited I got to snag that this morning. I'm excited. If you don't follow Dark and Corky, I can link their box down below. They're probably sold out by now, but Gianna was in their May box. It went on sale today and I snagged that up because I need the special edition of one of my favorite books. Okay, so then I did read the next 2 books for my member exclusive reading vlog for May. I actually swapped one out because one of those books was a DNF, so I did read A Scot in the Dark by Sarah McLean. I like Sarah McLean. She is, though, just like a 4-star author for me. I gave this 4 stars. I think I gave most of her books 4 stars, except for 9 Rules to Break. I love that book, but everything else she's written recently is pretty good. So this one, our hero is Scottish, and he ends up inheriting a Duke title? Yes, he ends up inheriting a dukedom. He was like way far down the line, but everyone's been dying. He inherits being our heroine's guardian. It's a guardian ward romance, and she has a scandalous reputation. She has been dating this artist. She thinks they're in love. She let him paint scandalous photos of her, and he's gonna release one to the entire society. So it starts out with her at a party. She thinks he's gonna propose, and he said he has the most amazing portrait to show them of her naked. He hasn't shown it yet, so the hero is a Scotsman who comes down. He's trying to help her reputation, trying to find her a good person to marry, and they end up falling for each other instead. He feels like he's never been good enough for anybody in society because people just see him as this like big Scottish brute, and he had a really hard life. I really enjoy this. I wish we got to know more about the hero throughout the book. We only really got to know what actually happened to him at the end, and I would have felt a lot more connected in understanding of his character if we saw that a little bit earlier, even if it was just revealed to us and not the heroine yet. I just felt a little bit detached from his character until the end, but I really liked how they did fall for each other. He had like a list of people that could marry her, and she got really mad because she doesn't want to be forced into marriage. She wants to marry for love, and they're falling in love, and I just really like this. And he freaks out anytime they do something intimate because he's like, oh my gosh, I'm only good for my body and I'm not good enough for her, and it was just really cute. I gave it 4 stars. Not amazing, but I still really enjoyed it. And then I read The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This one was a book for my book club at my high school that I teach at, and this one was pretty good. I give it 4 stars. We have this whole society of this fantasy world where there are red bloods and silver bloods have powers. So they're the ones that are the royalties, the rich people, and the red bloods just work and are recruited for the army without choice. And our heroine is actually a red blood who has powers. And it goes from there. I really like the whole like love square thing going on, and the ending was pretty surprising. I was not expecting the ending, so I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I think I could really tell why it was hyped up when it came out like back in 2015 because it had so many of those kind of tropes in YA fantasy that was super popular, but I was surprised by the ending, so that's why I gave it 4 stars. Definitely gave me twists and turns I wasn't expecting. Killed people off I wasn't expecting, so I am intrigued enough to continue on in the series. Then I read Charge by Kate C. Wells. This is probably my least favorite book of the month. I gave it 2 stars. It was just not for me. Our heroine is a single mom. She's 21. She was actually assaulted when she was very young and got pregnant from that encounter, and no one believed her that it happened to her, and so she has been treated horribly by her family, and they've tried to take her son away before, but she has to move because she can't afford to live where she was living, and she lives in this really broken down place with her son next to the house of the father of someone in the MC called Charge. He sees her, he wants her, that's where the story goes. Our heroine was very, very young and naive because of what happened to her, and she felt much younger than 21, even though she is 21 and she did experience a lot and she's a single mom. She just felt very helpless and naive to me, which made her feel even younger. And the hero is in his 30s, so like that dynamic didn't really fit well with me, and the heroine just, things she said and did were annoying because when it got to the intimate scene, she was obsessed with the fact that she had a pudge and talked about it like 10 times, and I'm like, I get you're insecure about your body, but you don't have to bring it up every other paragraph. And so that got really frustrating to me. She was really judgmental on our hero when she figured out he had a record. I was like, he's in an MC, and he's called Charge because of how many times he's been charged with things that he's done, and so I didn't like how she judged him for that because she was mad at people for judging her, and every woman in here was a villain. Every woman was after her man, and she hated them, and I hate the let's hate all women because they're after my man kind of thing, and that's all this book was. So I gave it 2 stars. I was not a fan of really anything in here, and I was pretty disappointed. I did DNF The Controversial Princess by Jodi Ellen Malpas. I just was not in the mood for that, and that was the second book that was picked for this exclusive reading vlog for my members, but I asked them if it was okay if I replaced it with Praise by Sarah Kate. I was recently reading Praise by Sarah Kate. I'd started that as my treadmill book, so I read while I run. I always read an ebook, and I wasn't reading anything on my e-reader yet, and so I started it and I was obsessed. So I was like, can I DNF the book you chose? Because they choose and vote on the books I read, and read this instead. And they were all like, you only live once, go for it. Do not worry about DNFing a book, it's fine, which they are amazing for that. So I read this book in a day and a half. It was absolutely amazing. Yesterday I was on 15% and I finished it this morning. So this book is a boyfriend's dad romance. Our heroine broke up with her boyfriend before the book started, and she needs her half of the deposit for their apartment back. It was $2 grand, and so she's like, I need that $1,000 because it's mine. And he's like, well, my dad's the one who lent me the money, so you need to get it from him. And she's so annoyed because her boyfriend's not talking to his dad, and she can relate to that because her dad's a pretty crappy person too, and she does not talk to her father. So she goes, and the hero is actually a co-owner of a club, and it is a club. And so he thinks she's there to be his new sub, as in sub-dom sub. And so he tells her, get on your knees. And he's like, don't you want your money? And she was like, well, yeah, I want my money, but she thinks it's the rent money he's talking about. He quickly realizes his mistake, and they are both horrified. So she gets her money, leaves, but she can't stop thinking about it. And she starts Googling, and she's very intrigued. He offers her a job as his like literal secretary without anything like that, because he knows she needs help. So she does, and then it quickly turns into her wanting to explore those things with him, and they fall in love, and it is so, so good. He becomes so smitten with her and wanting to take care of her, and I loved how patient he was with her and how consenting he was, wanting to know what she wants to explore safely with him, and it was just so good. I love the dynamics with the son, because the dad was still really trying to salvage his relationship with the son. He wasn't like this horrible, awful guy. I mean, he did cheat on her, but it's not like he was the villain of the story. Like, the dad still wanted to prioritize his relationship with his son as well, even though he was falling for his son's ex-girlfriend. It was amazing. I was so obsessed with this book. 5 stars. I cannot wait to read more by Sarah Kate, and I can see what the hype is for this book. And those are all the books I read in the second half of April. Let me know what you read and what your favorites were. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.